how actually best to deliver online teaching and learning. Okay, so there are actually three things that we have to consider while we deliver online teaching and learning. The first one is we need to make sure that we have engaging content. Okay, that's number one. The second one is in terms of engaging activities. And the third one is the tool should support emotional connection. Okay, we are emotionally connected with the tools. So in order for us to select the best tools for our teaching and learning, we should try to be able to fulfill all these three aspects, three elements together, and we make full use of it. Okay, that's why I would say that sometimes maybe we don't need to use a lot of tools, okay, but we can use some tools with of which it actually meets our requirements. Okay, it meets the requirement for us to get engaged with the students. For example, like if you want to have engaging content, okay, there are three aspects that we want to have. For example, is actually how relevant the content to the audience. For example, when we're creating slides, for example, is the font size acceptable? Is it too wordy? Sometimes I have seen actually the lecturer slide, PowerPoint slides that is actually like it's a copy paste from a textbook and everything is there. And you're showing it online. How can you expect that the students are reading it? Okay, so that is number one. The second one is entertaining yet educational. So that's the content, which is the text, icon, image, they are interacting with each other. And what will make the students remember the content? Okay, so for example, like sometimes you may want to use slides, okay, for example. So how does you make sure that the images, the text, icon that you use within the slides are interacting with each other? And finally, within the slide itself, you should have a call to action. For example, like what's the purpose of that slides? Is it actually requires more action from the students? What is next after that? Or it's just a slide? It's just a dissemination of notes when you prepare this kind of engaging content. If you're looking for engaging activities, I don't do any kind of ni lah, apa, tak pakai tool lah, sebab takut nanti masa tak cukup. Tapi if you're looking at engaging activities, for example, like it has to be student-centered learning friendly. So for example, like can the tools allow for collaboration? Can the tool allow for brainstorming and interact with each other? Okay. And then if you are looking for assessment-centered tool, okay. For example, can the tool allow the students to get immediate feedback and correct their understanding before they proceed to the next lesson? Okay, and then another tool that you have to need to have is actually the learner-centered tool. Okay, can the tool be used for the student from any background? For example, like does the bandwidth required is a huge bandwidth or low bandwidth, for example? What happen if let's say the student have a relatively lower connection? So these are the things that we need to consider when we pick the right tool to engage with the students. Sometimes our tools are actually heavy to use. You know, for example, like it is of huge bandwidth, and therefore it discriminate the student with a low connectivity. So these are the things that we may want to consider from time to time when we are picking the right tools for our student. And another one is actually the tools for emotional connection. Okay, so I'm taking actually, if you realize from several criteria of the tools that I picked, is actually it is based on the what we call as how people learn framework. How people learn framework is a framework developed by J.D. Bransford. It was introduced in 2000, and it has 4 lenses in it. The first one is knowledge-centered, learner-centered, assessment-centered, as well as community-centered. As I mentioned earlier, to make sure that the student feels safe in our classroom, so we should have some kind of community-centered tool. Okay, so for example, like can the tools allow them to interacting with their instructors and peers? So what are the pedagogical approaches that can be embedded when we are using this kind of tool? So that, for example, like they don't feel stupid, they don't, and even when they ask question, if they do not understand a thing or two, for example, can they ask directly? Because if, for example, if you know, using the chat section, sometimes it's not, student don't like it actually. They sometimes they wanted to remain anonymous. I receive a lot of reflection from the students They wanted to know something, but they do not want to be look stupid. They do not want to be look silly. So they prefer not to ask at the chat section. So what happened is, whenever that I created Mentimeter, for example, I use a lot of Mentimeter. And I think because I use a lot, because I subscribe to it lah at the same time. It's quite pricey kan. But I use that a lot, for example, as a tool for them to talk to me and engage with me. Okay. And there are lots of questions that are coming out from there. And of course, sometimes we can address those kind of questions, those kind of curiosity, because these students particularly, definitely they have I do not know what is actually going on, but actually I think it's also the practice in the past. They are not used to ask question, and they are afraid to ask question, and usually that's why you receive a lot of side messages from PM tepi kan. For example, that they privately message you to ask certain question that they can ask in the group, but it is not happening because they don't feel secure to ask those kind of questions. So when we use certain tools that can make them feel anonymous, yet they can ask question, those are the things that they really welcome. So that is what we call as community-centered tool. And finally, students are regularly can be actually asked to do reflection. So you can ask, because sometimes you want to get the feedback from them. That is one thing. Second one is actually you want to reflect. You want them to reflect on their learning. So you can ask them to do reflection as well. So if let's say there is any tool that you can use for reflection, it is highly welcome. For example, you can use like a Padlet and so on. And if you're thinking about collaboration, okay, for example, you want them to collaborate among each other. On top of doing breakout activities using certain platform like WebEx or Zoom and so on, you can also ask them to collaborate using Canva. Okay, so for example, like I prepared the slide here using Canva. What they can also do is actually you can share the link. So if let's say I share the link, let's say I share the link to you right now just to view. Okay, so basically you can actually just you can view the slides. Okay, but if let's say I share the link, let's say I open another design together. Okay, so I use a lot of these slides for the purpose of breakout session. So whenever that I give them tasks, and then I put them in the breakout, so they will use the slides in Canva together so that they can collaborate. Okay, so that is also an added value that I give to them. For example, right now, for those who have joined, you can just type anywhere. For example, you type T to start with the text. Okay, you can use T for text, right? Dr. Selina is already there. And then you can also add, for example, like sometimes I ask them to use emoji. And of course, I don't put too many. If let's say I would like to have many people using this, okay, I will just add pages. So different rooms, different breakout room will have different page. So they will participate in it. They will participate and they will just use their respective slide just to make sure that they are contributing to it. Okay. For example, like kalau tengok saya punya ni, I have some breakout activities that I have conducted with the students. Okay. Like for example, like I have given this kind of breakout activities to the students. I give them some questions, something for them to think together as a team. I give them some question for them to analyze. And then they will go, for example, like room 1, for those in room 1, they will actually participate. Room 2, there are some people here and so on lah. So that's how they collaborate using Canva. And I think so far I'm sticking to this lah, using Canva, because I feel that it's kind of a good practices for them to collaborate while also Because sometimes they, even when you put the breakout, you give them, they are not actually they are not actually talking to each other. That is also another challenge when you put in the breakout. So by giving this kind of Canva work, they don't have chance, but they have to talk to each other and they have to collaborate and somehow. Okay, so some examples in terms of the tools that I use Canva for content and collaboration. I use Mentimeter so that I can improve communication as well as interaction among themselves. And then finally, I use Padlet for my reflective writings. Okay. I think that's all for me, Dr. Tazli. So I pass over to you.